What's up, friends? Jared here with Drone Talk Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. As you know, every Tuesday I'm dropping bite-sized videos for you guys talking all things drone. And today we're going to talk about drone batteries, how to maintain them, and how to fly safely with them. So stay tuned. Hey guys, thanks for dropping in. I always appreciate you guys sending me feedback on these videos. If there's a topic you want me to cover, please drop me a comment below or shoot me a message. I love learning that you guys are watching these videos and learning something from them, because my goal is to educate people about the drone industry and how to really view drones as an aircraft and a tool and not just a toy, so that we fly safely and that we create a positive image for drones as we move into the future. And so today's topic, it's got a few layers to it. It might sound simple, but there's more to it than just the simplicity of it. And that's drone batteries and how they affect your flight and how to maintain them in the long run. And so I know you guys might think that a battery is very simple. You just power it on and it provides power to your drone. And you would be correct in that. It does do that, but they do much more than that, especially when you start getting into the higher end consumer drones, especially the DJI brands. I fly a Mavic 2 Pro, and those batteries are specifically designed with programming in them to keep them safe during flight and when you store them. So let's talk a little bit about flying with your battery. First and foremost, you need to go through the owner's manual and read up on them, because it's going to tell you a lot and everything you need to know. And you should never fly your drone with a discharged battery. You should always have it 100% charged up before you fly, because you want to make sure that it is providing the right voltage to all the onboard systems and everything in it. And you want to make sure that you have enough juice to do what you want to do when you get in the sky. And so guys, when you are flying your drones, most of the DJI drones, not the current Mavic Airs, but prior to those models, you can actually look up the voltage of your battery. And this might sound a little funny, but it's very, very important to know what the voltage is when you're flying, because if it drops below a certain voltage, then you know your battery is starting to go bad. And so we'll get into that a little bit. How do you know your battery is going bad? Well, your onboard systems might start malfunctioning. You might start getting GPS loss. You might start getting connectivity issues with your phone and your display on your phone, your video feed. And so those are some indicators that your battery cells might be going bad. And so the way to check that is to go into your advanced settings on your drone, look at your voltage, and see if it's dropping down below 3.6, 3.3. Those are specific numbers in some of the manuals that say, hey, some of the cells are going bad. And you can do that on a lot of the drones out there, especially the DJI ones, not the newer models, but like the Mavic 2 Pro. Anytime I fly, I actually have the voltage displayed on my phone the entire time I fly, and I'm watching it as I fly to make sure it's not dropping voltage to a dangerous level. Because the last thing you want to do is drop that voltage drop because you have a damaged cell, and all of a sudden your drone falls out of the sky. That's the last thing we want, right? So that's one tip, especially for commercial operators or anybody flying all the time, is to check out the voltage of your drone. And you can even do a voltage test. The guys over at Drone U, if you want some excellent information, they put out a ton of great information, great podcast. They actually tell you about a test you can do, and essentially you put an entire full charge on your drone battery, you take off with it and ram it up into the sky, ascend as fast as you can and put a load on it, and you watch the voltage. If any of the cells on your screen drop below 3.6, you need to think about replacing your battery, because you might have some damage to it. And so guys, I know this is something you're probably not going to think about when you first buy a drone, but after you put quite a few cycles on it, it's something you have to worry about. All batteries eventually come to an end, and there's really no set rule on how long of a life. I know people who have gotten 50 cycles out of a battery, meaning they've charged it 50 times. Or I know people who have gotten 200 cycles out of a drone battery. It just depends on how you fly it and how well you maintain it. And so let's talk about the weather environment and how it affects drones. Specifically with the DJI drones, I can tell you from firsthand experience that if you fly in super cold weather or super hot weather, it's going to affect the battery life and the cells. There are specific operating temperatures that you need to stay within. About -10 degrees and up to I think 150 degrees on some of the drones is how cold and hot these batteries can operate safely. And once you get outside of those ranges, then you're going to start getting warning flashes on your phone or your device that you're flying with saying, hey, your battery is experiencing too much heat, or your battery is experiencing too cold of weather, and that affects the cells and how and how the battery provides energy to the onboard systems. And so if you start getting those indicators in super hot or super cold weather, you need to bring it in, especially in super cold weather, because it can really affect the drone very rapidly in cold weather, and the drone battery specifically. And so when you're going out to fly, keep that in the back of your mind. Super hot weather, super cold weather can affect the duration of your flight and may potentially make you bring it in, because the battery cells could become damaged if you ignore those warnings. And so that's what I mean by these intelligent flight batteries. They tell you what's going on with them sometimes. They're more than just a little Duracell battery providing energy to your drone. They are actually an onboard system of the aircraft, the drone, that have software programmed into them, so that way they can relay information to you and keep tabs on the battery cells and keeping them, homeostasis. And so that's some of the operating environment things that can affect the battery. And another thing you guys need to think about is storing your batteries. With these lithium ion and LiPo batteries, you do have to store them a certain way. And you would think, oh, if I charge it all the way, I'll be good and I can sit it on my shelf for 2 or 3 months and I'll be fine. Actually, that's incorrect. If you read some of the manuals, and I'm specifically referring to DJI, they'll tell you that you need to discharge your battery to between 40 and 60% before storing it long term, because overcharged cells on a battery in the long term can damage them. Likewise, if you run your battery down to like 10 or 5%, that's critically low. And if you have an undercharge on the battery and it's sitting there on the shelf for too long, that can damage the cells as well. So the happy medium is about 50%. So make sure your drone batteries are at 50% if you're going to store them for a long time. And you can, on some of the drones, have the batteries automatically discharge after a certain amount of days. You can go into the settings on your drone, select the battery icon, and set, please discharge my battery after 3 days of sitting on the shelf. So that way you have a little preventative maintenance on these things. And so that is something that is very important that a lot of people forget about. A lot of people don't even know it. And then all of a sudden they go to fire their battery up after 4 or 5 months and they can't figure out why. Probably because it was either overcharged or undercharged and it damaged the cells. And so on occasion, if it's undercharged and critically low and you store it, it'll enter what's called hibernation mode to try to prevent damage. And you can get it out of hibernation mode by putting it on the charger for like 3 hours, but you won't know that until you try charging it for that long. And so instead of going through that hassle, just make sure you do the proper maintenance, which is storing them at 50% instead of 100% or, critically low under like 10%. And so that's a little bit about the maintenance on these batteries and why it is so important. Another thing to make sure you guys are checking before you go out to fly is the physical inspection of the battery. You need to check the little connections in here and make sure none of them are damaged. Make sure there's been no water vapor on them. Make sure there's no rust on them, because a bad connection will create a very bad circuit and bad voltage through your onboard systems, and you're going to start getting warnings and improper flight mechanics. And you also need to check for swelling. These batteries, when they start, some of them will actually puff and swell and go bad. That's an indication that you have cells on the inside going bad, and you probably need to think about replacing it. And so if in my experience, I've gotten over 100 cycles out of these batteries. I've charged them over 100 times. And I've got a couple batteries that I'm at 150, but I maintain my batteries and I don't fly them in super extreme weather unless I absolutely have to. And when I do, it's a very short time. And so I try to take care of my batteries. It's just like a car. If you do the oil changes and you do the basic maintenance, it's gonna last longer. But again, I've seen guys who have blown through batteries in 50 or 60 charges. So it all depends on how you're flying and the maintenance you do to them. And so those are some of the quick tips that I have for you guys, some of the information you need to know about the batteries. And there's a ton of information online pertaining to your specific drone if you just look it up about battery care and battery maintenance. And this applies to anybody flying drones, whether you're recreational or you're Part 107. And another little tip for people that are flying commercially, because you don't want to have an accident and you don't want to cash in on that liability insurance by damaging somebody's property, create a battery log. So that my pre-flight checklist video that I talked about, part of my pre-flight checklist is logging my batteries. I have all the brand new dates in which I purchased my batteries written on them, and they all have a number. And what I do is each time I fly, I log how long I flew for, and I log that battery in the log, and I keep record of it, a hand record. But you can also go into your battery settings and look and see how many times it has been charged as well. So whether you're keeping a handwritten log or you're looking it up, just make sure you're keeping tabs on your battery life and how many times you've charged it, because you need to start thinking about when you get out to 100, 150 cycles, if you're taking good care of it, you might need to start thinking about replacing it. And they're not cheap. You don't want to blow through a battery really quickly. These DJI Mavic 2 Pro batteries, $170 roughly, with tax. $150, you add tax, and you pay a little shipping, you're pushing $170 for one of these. I own 5 of these things, and so that gets pretty expensive pretty quick for a small business owner, so you want to take care of your stuff. And so guys, that's a little bit about battery maintenance. Like I said, there's more layers to it than you might think. I hope this video was informative to you. Please drop a comment below or message me if you have any questions. Let me know what video topics you want me to cover, and we'll catch you guys next time for Drone Talk Tuesday.